It was a crisp autumn morning when Major General Tasha King, a woman of undeniable strength and authority, walked into the small suburban town of Harlington. Known for her remarkable military career and as one of the few black female generals in the United States Armed Forces, she had earned the respect of everyone who had crossed her path. Her posture exuded confidence, and the dignified aura around her was an embodiment of years of sacrifice and honor. What should have been just another routine visit to inspect military personnel training quickly spiraled into an incident that would change everything. Major General King had been traveling through Harlington, a small, tight-knit community, to oversee a military operation scheduled in the area. She had a deep sense of pride for her military duties, knowing that her contributions paved the way for the younger generation, particularly other women of color, to thrive in the armed forces. However, none of that mattered that day. What mattered was the humiliating series of events that followed. It all began when she was stopped by the local police while on her way to the military base. The officers, unknowing of her identity, assumed she was just another civilian. They were unaware that the woman they were about to accost had commanded troops in war zones, made life-altering decisions on a daily basis, and was the very definition of power in a world dominated by men. Their ignorance, however, would soon lead to a grave mistake. "License and registration, ma'am," one of the officers demanded as he approached her car. His tone was dismissive, his eyes scanning her with a mix of disdain and suspicion. Major General King, her patience tested but her demeanor calm, responded, "I'm Major General Tasha King, United States Army. I'm here on official business. You may want to check your records." The officer, seemingly unimpressed, glanced at her military identification and waved it aside. "Doesn't look like it's registering with me, ma'am. Step out of the vehicle." Before she could react, the officer, now joined by his partner, yanked open her car door. They pulled her out, placed her hands behind her back, and cuffed her roughly despite her protests. "You don't have the right to do this," Major General King stated, her voice steady yet growing firmer. One officer, perhaps caught in a moment of adrenaline or ignorance, sneered, "You're just a woman and you'll respect the law." It was a statement that cut deeper than the physical restraints on her wrists. In that brief moment, Tasha King knew this was no ordinary traffic stop. This was an encounter fueled by bias, ignorance, and an evident lack of respect for authority. The situation was growing more dangerous by the second. Tasha King, a seasoned leader in the armed forces, could see the officer's lack of training in handling such situations, particularly when faced with someone of her stature. The tension was palpable as they dragged her toward the squad car, her every movement restricted by the handcuffs. Tasha's mind raced. She knew that if she didn't act quickly, the situation could spiral out of control. She calmly instructed, "Call your supervisor. Now." But it wasn't until she firmly mentioned the word Pentagon that the atmosphere seemed to shift. The officers faltered, their arrogant confidence crumbling. There was a flicker of recognition, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. As the officers placed her in the back of their patrol car, Major General King's calmness belied the intensity of what she was about to do. She knew that no matter how much they tried to suppress her, her position in the military meant she could not be silenced. Without hesitation, she reached for her phone and dialed a number that would change everything. She had the power to make calls others could only dream of, and right now, she was going to use that power. Within minutes, the voice on the other end was unmistakable. "General King, what's going on? I'm being detained by officers in Harlington, and they've cuffed me without cause," she replied with chilling precision. "You need to get this resolved now." The response from the Pentagon was immediate. Within moments, Major General King was no longer just another civilian in a small town. She was the very embodiment of military command, a force that the officers could not disregard any longer. The situation escalated quickly. The police chief, after being contacted by the Pentagon, raced to the scene, but by then it was already too late. Tasha had already made her point, and the repercussions for the officers involved would be monumental. The police chief immediately took the officers off duty, and an internal investigation was launched. The entire department was placed under scrutiny as the magnitude of their actions began to sink in. It wasn't just the mistake of detaining a military general without cause, it was the disrespect, the systemic prejudice, and the utter disregard for a person's status and rights. Major General King's call to the Pentagon was not just about her. It was about the larger issue at hand, the deep-seated biases that still plagued law enforcement, and the systemic oppression that black women, particularly in positions of power, were all too often subjected to. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the officers had acted based on preconceived notions rather than facts. They had assumed she was just another black woman on the street and failed to recognize her identity and authority, which could have easily been confirmed. Their arrogance, compounded by their ignorance, led to their downfall. The public outcry was immediate. The incident became national news, and Major General King was heralded as a hero for her bravery in the face of racism and prejudice. She didn't seek praise, however, her mission was clear. This was about justice, and more importantly, accountability. She was not going to let this moment slip by without ensuring that the officers responsible were held to the highest standards. As the officers were placed under investigation, the town of Harlington became a symbol of change. The incident prompted a nationwide discussion about racial profiling, bias in law enforcement, and the treatment of black women in positions of authority. It sparked reform initiatives aimed at improving police training, fostering respect for all citizens, and addressing systemic issues that often went unnoticed. For Major General King, the events of that day were a stark reminder of the prejudices that still needed to be eradicated. However, she refused to let that define her. Instead, she channeled the moment into something bigger, something that could potentially change the future for others who followed in her footsteps. In the weeks that followed, the police officers involved were not only disciplined but also faced charges for wrongful arrest and racial discrimination. The town of Harlington implemented new community outreach programs, fostering understanding between law enforcement and the public. The incident served as a wake-up call for the entire country, reminding everyone that no one, regardless of their race, gender, or position, should ever be subjected to such treatment. As for Major General Tasha King, she remained steadfast in her mission. She continued to serve her country with honor, never wavering in her commitment to justice. Her story wasn't just one of humiliation. It was a testament to the strength of character, perseverance, and the unwavering belief that everyone deserves respect, no matter their background or status. This incident has brought to light the ongoing issues of systemic discrimination and bias in our society. If you believe in justice and accountability, don't let this story be forgotten. Share this video, subscribe to Expect Stories, and help amplify the voices that need to be heard. Together, we can make a difference.